Now, let us move on to the tools involved in needs assessment. The first and the most common tool that we use in needs assessment is the questionnaire. You can have different questions in questionnaire. You can have open-ended questions, you can have closed questions, you can have checklists, you can have rating scales, you can have rankings, etc. Questionnaire is the most commonly used tool for needs assessment, and it has got an advantage also. One of the advantages is we can get responses from a very large population. For example, you can email the questionnaire to different persons. You can go and meet them in person and collect responses. You can send them by post. So, you can have responses from large number of respondents. That is the advantage. There is a disadvantage also to this tool. What is it? The disadvantage is, if the questionnaire is too long, then probably the responses will be mechanical. Even otherwise it can happen, because when the respondents are filling in the questionnaire, the one who is administering the questionnaire is not with them, so they can give mechanical answers. So, you can only collect responses for the you can only collect answers for the question what. If you want to get the answer for the question why, then you should conduct focus group discussion or interviews. So, questionnaire is one of the most commonly used tools for collecting data with regard to needs assessment. The next one is test. It is also a beautiful sample, because you can get first hand information about the samples, the writing samples of the students. We will come to know where the students are, what is the present situation of the students, okay, where do they stand, and what is the present level of proficiency the students have. So, in order to know this, we can administer tests. One of the advantage of giving tests is they can act as a diagnostic tool to identify the specific area of deficiency of a particular student. The marks that we get can be compared, and we can even make it as a report to tell about the present position of the child, where the learner stands, what is his present level of proficiency. Of course, the tests have got their own difficulties and disadvantages. Many tests, or most of the tests, cannot be actually given as standardized test. If the test varies, or if it is not given as a standardized test, the results will also be varied, and if the results are varied, it cannot be generalized. So, test there fails to achieve the target. And we are now going to see how interviews can be made use of as a tool for needs assessment. We talked about the questionnaire, we talked about the test, now we are going to talk about the interview. As I have told you, when you administer the questionnaire, one of the difficulty that we face is we may get responses for the question what, but we will not get the answer for the question why. So, if you want to get an in-depth study or exploration of the question that you have asked, you may go in for interviews, or you may go in for focus group discussions, which is called FGD. So, one thing that we all should bear in mind is that before going for an interview, we should plan it beforehand. You should have the questions beforehand, because if you ask ambiguous questions, then the answers will not be very clear, and that would even affect the result. Okay? Yes, you can have both face to face and phone in interviews, and you can use the interview. I have told you interviews have got their own merits. You can use the interview to get feelings, the opinions of the respondents, to find out whether the causes of the work, find out the causes of the problems, find out many things. Okay, but interviews have their own disadvantages also. Interviews have got their own limitations also. One of the limitation is it is time consuming. You cannot interview each and every person. Many cannot be involved in it. The second one is one should practice, or one should have special skills for conducting interview. And the third one is almost many would not come for interviewing is not an easy task. Many would not be willing to conduct an interview. So the third disadvantage is it is not an easy task, because to get the consent of the person to be interviewed is not easy. So these are the limitations or disadvantages of conducting interviews. Another tool that we can use for needs assessment is the observation. Observation of learner behavior in a target situation is one of the most beautiful ways by which you can assess the needs of the learners. If you want to get the information about work culture, what we should do? We should go to the workplace, we should observe them, we should see their difficulties, whether they have got difficulties in speaking, whether they are good at writing, what difficulties do they face when they come to the real work that they are doing. So with regard to subject matter, with regard to the use of language, so observation can give you wonderful insights about the needs of the learners. But observation will not happen all of a sudden. You should have the patience, first one. Second one is one should get the permission of the boss. In workplaces it is not easy to go with a observation schedule and note down the observation. You should get the permission, first one. Second one, the ethical consideration, that is the persons who are there should give you the permission for that. And success depends on how well you record the data. If the data is not recorded properly, or if it would affect the results, and the analysis of the results will be affected. So you can also use program reports of other institutions as one of the tools for needs assessment. For example, if you are going to conduct a creative writing course in your institution, you may just go and you can just collect information from other institutions which run the same course. They would give you, or these institutions would give you, beautiful insights on the problems that they have come across, how they have overcome that problem, what are the possible threats that are likely to come when you implement this program in your institution, like that. So program reports can also be used as a very good tool for needs assessment. And the last one, of course, the reports of industry. Each industry would have its internal and external reports. If you read these reports, you will come to know what the learner, what the industry wants, what is the demand of the industry. Before implementing the curriculum, we have to plan, and the first process in the planning is the needs assessment. You have to find the real needs of the learners, and we were discussing what needs analysis is, and we were also discussing in detail the different stages in the implementation of needs analysis, and we have also discussed the tools which we can use in needs assessment. Okay. Yes. And the last thing that you have to do in the preparation phase is you have to create a job profile. For example, if you are going to conduct a creative writing in your institution, you have to think of the different job profiles the students are likely to get after the completion of the course. The other day, I just asked my students to name some new gen courses that they can go for after completing their literature studies. I expected they would come up with the traditional answers like teaching, civil service, journalism, etc. But they told me careers which were quite interesting. They told me careers in advertising. Some of them wanted to take a public relationships, careers in BPO, business process outsourcing. Some of them wanted to be copywriters, technical writers, and the things like. So what I mean to say is, developing a curriculum is challenging because we are dealing with the new gen students. If we are not thoughtful of them, then the whole curriculum process will be stagnant and it won't be of any use for them. So job profile analysis is very important. So before, in the preparation stage of the curriculum planning, we have to think of the different job profiles these students are going to get when they go in for the different careers. Okay, as I have told you, see, this can be done by a beautiful process called DACUM, D-A-C-U-M. D-A-C-U-M is the short form for develop a curriculum. What is develop a, in what are the process involved in develop a curriculum? In develop a curriculum, people belonging to a particular field, for example, those who are working in different fields after taking up their literature studies, they would come together and they will have a workshop. Okay, so that is the first thing. So they each one would write about, in the workshop, each one would write about the duties and responsibilities of their particular work. They would brainstorm and write down the duties and responsibilities of their particular work, the different tasks that they have to do in the work, in their work. So a copywriter would say that he would have to write content for websites, blogs, articles, billboards, posters, leaflets, etc. So they would come and write down. First they will sit together, they will brainstorm and they will write all the job profiles, and then they would write down the task, what are the different tasks that they have to do with regard to their particular job. I am going to read out the task that is that a copywriter should do. This is taken from the net. First one, you should conduct an in-depth research on industry related topics in order to develop original content. Second one, he should compare and contrast similar topics in journals and from the internet. Next one, he should write keeping the targeted audience. Next one, he should develop the content with compelling headlines and body copy. Fifth one, should proofread the content for errors and inconsistencies. So what I mean to say is, in the DACUM process develop a curriculum process. In that process, people would come together and they will have a workshop, and in that workshop, first thing that they will do is they will write down the job profiles, and then they would write down the different tasks involved in they would write down the task which is there in their work. Okay, so if you have this job profiles and task analysis, I think the preparation phase is over. So in a nutshell, what we have discussed is we have discussed the differences between syllabus and curriculum. We have seen the different stages of curriculum planning and we have discussed in detail the first step, that is the preparation stage, and we have also seen what is needs analysis, what are the different ways by which we can get the needs, okay, and we can also we also had a very short description of a DACM process, that is develop a curriculum process by which we can have the job profiles and task analysis. Thank you.